Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur here on the Big Up platform. And we're going to be doing a tactical breakdown, player ratings, all that good stuff. But it's kind of a difficult one, I must say, everybody. Watching back the highlights, the game was a bit dull. Even when you're watching back highlights and you're kind of bored, it's not really a very entertaining game of any kind. You know that the performance wasn't really there. It's kind of a weird game where Fulham, I think, were the better team, but maybe didn't do, let's say, enough to eventually kind of get the win. They kind of sort of hung in there. We hung in there, probably, tried our best to get some sort of momentum back in the game, just never really could. Ange Postacoglu, yet again, probably dealing with a lot of injury issues, gets the substitutions perhaps wrong. Just a lot of different elements to this game, I must be honest. Poor performances from a lot of individuals in this game as well as some good performances from those that normally we wouldn't expect it from. So it's just one of those very confusing games, might I add. So please, everybody, feel free to join us for this. Get your player ratings in. That's kind of where we start off. And then we're going to do some tactical breakdowns, take a look at some couple of the screenshots and everything from the game and all that good stuff. But really appreciate you guys supporting us over on this platform. This is something that Dave and I, have been doing for a while now, and the people have been with us from the beginning. We really appreciate you. And if anybody is joining us just now, we're going to be doing plenty of things over here. We do neutral watch longs, kind of treat it like a pub sort of hangout session, get to hang out with Dave or I, talk about life, talk about Spurs, talk about whatever might be going on your mind, kind of like hanging out with the buddies at the pub or at your friend's house. And then we also have what's upcoming is a Hotspur hangout session at some point, which would be kind of like a free version of the fan show where you get to come on. And again, kind of maybe similar to the neutral watch alongs where, anybody can come on. It's free to anybody to come on. We are going to keep it strictly Spurs, kind of have a good, deep discussion. Dave and I will almost act like political moderators and like a debate, if you will, sort of firing questions at you guys one at a time. And then you could also sort of treat that as maybe like a more like, prestigious kind of like Spurs, pub of some kind, have a good type of a chat that way. So instead of it being kind of one-on-one sessions like you guys pay for with the fan show, be something a bit more casual, but
Yeah.
still well structured for the most part. So that's upcoming. So please join us for that. And it sounds like you want to chime in on that, Dave.
Yeah, there'd be no waiting around. As soon as you come in, you want to join, click the join stage, we'll get you on. You could be on with five people, you could be on with just me and Jack, depending on who turns up. But the idea is you come on, free ball, let's hear what you have to say.
Exactly right. And then last and certainly not least are these Tottenham hangovers, which are tactical breakdowns, play ratings, just a way to kind of recap the game in the best way that we can in a succinct manner. So please, if you're watching this back, we upload these back to YouTube. Please join us over on this platform. It will be pinned in the comments as well as also in the description. Good to see Rakdos Madness and Stevie Frazier with us already. Really appreciate it. We also have some people already watching along in the background. Feel free to make yourselves known, please. Stevie Frazier saying, I don't want to make excuses, but missing your keeper, two center backs, and best six and only striker last minute will kill any team. Basically, our spine. The board needs to deliver more than just the first 11. Stevie, that's kind of a version of, where I sort of fall as well, where when you're kind of in that position where you're missing center backs, missing your big number nine, and you have no backup to that number nine, no one even that's close in style or in ability. And then you're also missing, in my opinion, our best number six in Benton. You are missing a huge part of the spine of the team. And I think a lot of guys are already overworked at this stage when it
Yeah.
comes to their fitness levels. And so I wasn't necessarily going into this month expecting, I don't want to put it bleakly, but like, I'm not expecting like a whole lot. Like I'm not expecting huge performance after huge performance. I will expect there to be kind of drop off in levels, but I do feel like kind of similar to the Roma game when you do come once the ball is kicked and you even go in with those expectations, somehow Spurs still find a way to frustrate you. Sometimes Spurs still find a way to kind of leave you a bit, kind of, I don't know, Dave, annoyed or just sort of like the Roma game. We weren't really going into that expecting a whole lot, but Spurs actually left 3 points on the board there. This Fulham game felt like they just didn't even come out the gates kind of whatsoever, and everybody was just poor on the day. So it's kind of one of those performances for me, Stevie, where yes, I completely agree. Missing all those players is going to hurt any team, is going to make any team look bad. But somehow Spurs find a way to still kind of annoy you or frustrate you, even in those kind of circumstances.
What I would say is we look like a team that has a lot of injuries and that we've had to rely on a core bunch of players for a few weeks now in a row. We looked like that team yesterday. You look at Sutton, he looked absolutely jaded. Kulusevski had to come out at some point for a rest. Madison and Basuma, I don't give so much of a pass to because they were arrested for the majority of midweek to have that impact on today's game. Papa Massar looks jaded. Johnson looked jaded to a certain degree and didn't really provide much outside of his goal. Fullbacks, more so Pedro Porro, looked jaded completely.
Yeah.
So we looked like a team that were just basically fatigued, didn't really have nothing left in the tank. You could see there from about 55 minutes onwards. We couldn't really get a foothold in the game. It was all one way at one point. And Pedro Porro, especially, at 30 minutes to go, he looked like he was absolutely fucked. And Fulham picked up on that. But saying that, I still stand by what I said yesterday. I think, for instance, in yesterday's game, if we're being so badly outplayed and we can't get close to them to lay a glove on them to try and get the ball, which is a huge facet of our game, we have to tweak something or do something to try and get a foothold in the game. You can't just keep letting it come one way at you all the time. At some point, you have to make a decision to try and change it, whether it's get an extra man in midfield, whether it's, move the forward line around a little bit or whatever to try and just get some pressure on the ball. We didn't do that yesterday. And, that's why I think many Spurs fans are sort of really frustrated. I think, yeah, we all agree that we've got a load of injuries. We all agree that we're relying on a certain group of players, but that's then when you need to be a little bit clever. And look, being brutally honest, when you look back on the game yesterday, as many chances as Fulham had to win the game, we also had chances to win the game. We had a couple of chances in the first half that if we would have took them, it could have been a different game altogether. And that's the big frustrating thing, even over some of these defeats against some of the smaller teams, maybe bar the Crystal Palace game. One thing that me and you have kept banging on about, Jack, is, yeah, look, we can keep going for the defense. But the amount of chances we've had to kill games off, even last season, we're banging on about it. The amount of chances we've had to put ourselves in a nice, comfortable position, and we do not take it. It's really, really frustrating, and it goes back to what I said in the summer. I don't think we've done enough to really bolster out the squad with quality the way we needed it. I said in the summer, I don't think we brought in enough experienced players to add to that 11, that I do think we'll see a lot of inconsistencies, and here we are now. And for me, it's about getting to January transfer window and getting reinforcements in here. I'm bored of, get this person out, get that person out. I'm sick of it. Why can't we just have conversations around what we need to do to win? What parts of the puzzle do we need to implement to push us on and kick us on and win? And that's not just from the fans. That's to Daniel Levy and everybody else inside the club. There's an inherent culture that you're allowed to lose games at Tottenham. It's acceptable. You're allowed to go out there sometimes and put in minimal effort. It's acceptable. Conte said it when he's left. Jose Mourinho has ushered words similar. Pochettino at times. And also Harry Kane, when he left to Bayern Munich, said the exact same thing as well. And it's not good enough. And I'm absolutely fed up with it. They come out, they say all the right things. And people go, Dave, why do you go mad at these players? Why do you go mad at them? Well, they come out and say we want to win trophies and all that sort of bollocks. And then this is the shit I have to put up with during the whole season. That's why I go mad at them, because all they do, and I've said this for some time, all they do is tell you what you want to hear. They do not mean it. It's surface level. I'm a big believer. Actions tell me absolutely everything, and the words and their actions do not match up.
Before we break down player ratings and the stats and all that good stuff, my man Eddie, how are you, sir? And just if you had anything to add to what we were kind of saying to Stevie there, kind of saying I have a bit of sympathy to the team with all the injuries, and I was saying I kind of feel the same way, but somehow Spurs still kind of left you a bit annoyed and frustrated after that game, if you kind of get what I mean, despite going into that game knowing we were going to find it hard, knowing that we didn't have all of our players available and it was always going to be a tough game. Felt like they still kind of left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, it definitely did. I said in the group chat, obviously, I was disappointed and upset at the game, and we should have won that, or should have at least done better. We saw from the first minute we weren't in the best shape. We definitely were tired, leggy. There was only 4 changes made since the Roma game. Of course, the bringing back in on Basuma, Madison being back in, Solanke being having to go back home after coming in with an illness, according to Alistair Goh. That what happened. He came in with illness, and Ainge and his coaching staff sent him back home. And that's what I've heard. And of course, the big one, Bentancur, Kulu being dropped to the bench because of just trying to rest him up for the Bournemouth game away, which is definitely going to be more difficult than this, because Bournemouth's been flying recently, and they are going to provide a more difficult challenge than what a Fulham would, or what a Crystal Palace would, or even what a Ipswich would. I think like Bournemouth is a much better team than them, better players, arguably you can argue better manager. And we'll see what Bournemouth are made out of this coming Thursday for you, Friday morning, I think, for me. And hopefully we can get something over here, because I do have high hopes for the season still, even though I'm weighing on that. It's still quite close at the top, 5 points between us and second place. It's quite compact at the moment, so hopefully we can see us perform better and just do better, because that was disappointing for everyone, especially from the two who were rested that day, against Roma, Basuma and Madison.
Mm-hmm.
They should have done so much better. We should have seen much bigger impact than we did from them. I don't recall them really having any impact on the game, except for Basuma giving away sloppy possession and sloppy passes. Apart from that, it was really just a shit game overall. And hoping we could do better.
No, I certainly would like to see that, definitely in some regard, at least in a lot of aspects. I think even effort levels, were once again kind of similar to Roma, a bit missing, it felt like at times. And that's also kind of a frustrating thing as a fan to witness. Just going to get to some of the chat here and we'll kind of get this thing going, though. Really appreciate Eddie coming on and joining us. He's been our extra co-host, for these type of shows recently. Good to see Rakdos Madness. He's saying, "Hi, Dave and Jack. Welcome to December. It's going to be a long month for Spurs." Yeah, Dave and I have been saying that as an intro for pretty much a while now. Alan, we're getting ourselves well prepared for it mentally, at least the best that we can. Good to see Lazy 8 with us saying, "Do you have a screenshot of Sonny's second chance in the box?" I don't believe he could have taken that first time. Not that he had a good game or anything, but leveling that on him might be too harsh, in my opinion. We'll take a look at it. I think we have the opportunity that you're thinking about, Nick, and we'll make our best judgment of it, from the screenshot. And it's good that we have multiple people on here to make that judgment for you, sir. Appreciate you joining us, though. Good to see Stevie, of course. Good to see the Dermatron. We have MV Joker Davis with us, and let's get this show on the road. Now, looking at the stats, if you guys can tell, it's kind of a little bit smaller than I would like. Maybe I'll try to readjust the framing of it, but I'll read them aloud to you. Fulham, they only had just 2% less possession than us, despite finishing the last 10 or so minutes really with 10 men.
Wasn't that school with though? Because I think before they went down to 10 men, you read out possession on the watch along, and we had like 40%. So.
Yeah, exactly. We had less before that point. Yeah. And then it was only when we came back to having that man advantage that we were able to get more. But when you look at actually the possession or the expected goals there, you see 0.78 expected goals to 1.58. So they clearly were able to create bigger chances than us as well. They had plenty more shots than us, 14 to our 8. And we also had to perform or ask a lot more Fraser Forster when it comes to the saves department. But let's go into the average positions now. When you look at some of the average positions, you can see, it's again maybe a little bit different. Once Kulusevski is gone from the team, he likes to sort of hug that area right next to Pedro Porro, right next to Brennan Johnson, kind of bring them into support. For the most part, it's kind of pretty conventional. I think it's pretty standard to what we usually see. Porro and Destiny are pretty much level with each other when you look at that inverted role. Sonny, kind of playing off of Madison, but still kind of trying to push high as a striker. I guess for most of the game, he was trying to tuck into that left side. Makes sense as a right-footed player. Johnson trying to hug the touchline. I mean, I can't really take any real revelations or any real kind of talking points from the average positions or much of the stats, really, except for the fact that Fulham maybe dominated us from those stats.
Yeah, look, I just felt like the game I was watching yesterday, Jack, that Fulham dominated us for large parts of that game, large parts of the first half, large parts of the second half. And to be quite frank, in possession, I thought we were very lackluster, didn't really have any ideas, and didn't really create a whole lot. Our best chances actually came off Fulham mistakes.
Yeah. And then we're going to go on to, let me get this on here. We're going to get this on to now some of the player ratings for this time around. Again, it was kind of a little bit strange the way that SofaScore was formatting it for me this morning. But Fraser Forster, I don't know, lads. I'd probably give him close to an 8, maybe 7.5. I actually think the 7.4 is around, what I'd probably give him. Maybe an 8 if you just want to make it an even number. 7 seems a bit harsh. 8 seems a bit generous. So 7.5 seems about accurate. He made 2 decent saves, at one point in this game. Some others, were probably what you would expect from your backup goalkeeper, but he still was able to make them. And Fraser Forster, at least right now, certainly isn't the problem, you'd say.
Do you know what? He surprised me, Jack, or he's been surprising me. He had a very good game. I think the only real mistake he made was he went to pass it out to Basuma at some point.
Oh yeah,
Put it
there's
like
about one
10
of those.
yards wide of him or something. Nearly gave Fulham a goal. But, for the whole, I thought he was actually pretty decent. He's pulling off saves behind the back line. I looked at the goal yesterday and I was like, oh, could he have done better? But when I went back and sort of looked at it, I mean, your man caught it with with a lot of pace, and it was pulling away from him. It was almost
Exactly.
perfect. So I can't really put the goal on him. So I thought he had a good game, to be fair. Yes, I actually said all game, I think him, Davies, and Dragosin were our best players on the pitch. None of the others really get any respect for me. So Fraser Forster, I'd probably go as far as saying a 7 and 8. I don't want to give too many. I'm going to go 7. I'm not giving too many high ratings because the vast majority of the game was shit.
No, I'd agree with that, actually, them not being too high. But it's funny, actually. We'll probably, at least for the beginning portion of this player ratings, will actually be quite positive, because some of these guys ended up actually surprising us. Fraser Forster, to you, Eddie, I mean, 7.5 and 8 for you. I think, he certainly wasn't the problem in that game.
No, he wasn't a problem. And I'm shocked at the same time about how good Forster has been, but at the same time not, because I never write off a squad player until they have actually performed bad in games, and we haven't seen Fraser Forster for 18 months. And he finally came back, first Premier League start as a keeper for 18 months, and he actually did quite well this game. He actually proved that he could be our second choice, and we shouldn't be so afraid. Yes, he has some rocky moments, but sometimes that can come with not only age, but also with the amount of game times he doesn't get. He doesn't play that often, so he does have that bit of a rust when it comes to in-game scenarios. So I 7 is definitely fair, bit harsh, maybe 7.5. But he hasn't rocked my world by calling out cracked saves, but he's definitely done quite well as a backup goalkeeper and has proven that he can give us one more year, or just one more year of being a backup before we go back into the market, or maybe dip into our youth academy and have Keeley be the next backup, or even Austin, who just signed that long-term contract. So we'll see what happens this coming season, whether or not we dip into the market for a backup or we stick with what we got and try and make them work, because I feel like Keeley will probably be the next one through. I feel like Gunter is the next one to be loaned out to get some match experience with first team football, maybe to a League 2 or League 1 club. But yeah, we'll see what happens with the goalkeeper situation.
Well, Fraser Forster was given a 7.674324 by Stevie Fraser. And if that sounds about accurate to you guys, well, I think we'll go with that one. Pedro Porro. I don't know, Dave. Like, this is a tough one for me. Like, I don't think he was the worst player on the pitch. I don't think he did much to really earn much higher than a 6 or a 5.5 kind of, sort of region. Frustrating thing is that he looked tired and he looked injured in this game, and he should have been taken off for Jet Spence. And I don't necessarily blame him for being injured or for being tired and staying on. I feel like these is once again a situation where Ange has to look at the player and see that he's struggling and bring him off, because he has probably been overplayed for the most part too.
Well, look, he's one of the most selected players under Ange Postecoglou since his arrival. He barely ever gets a rest. So I do think there is a large element that he's absolutely, a beaten horse at this point. I do think he needs to come out and have a rest. I was surprised Jed Spence didn't come on. I know Johnny said in his fan cam yesterday that he was ready to come on and all of a sudden told to sit back down again. So I'm not sure the reasons behind that. But
Alan's gone 4 out of 10. Does that seem a bit tough, or is that accurate?
So I don't want to go too hard on Pedro Porro, because I do think, he does need a game or two out just to sort of rest a little. He's always playing. However, yesterday he was absolutely atrocious. I was fuming with him yesterday. I thought defensively he was weak. His man skinned him nearly every single time. And I think going forward, I lost count of how many times the guy gave away possession. I found it very frustrating on the whole yesterday. Do I blame him 100%? No. I think when his leg buckled underneath him, I think 30 minutes into the game in the first half. There should have been an air of caution and should have pulled him off. I don't think he fully recovered from that. A lot of our players tend to play through injuries and then they're out for weeks. I wonder, is he going to be another one? But also, the last point I'm going to make on it, and I don't want to hear the Brendan Johnson fanboys come at me crying again. I've been fair with the guy. I'll criticize him where I think it's due, and I'll also praise him where I think it's due. But when he's out on that right-hand side, he does not get back and help out Porro as much as Kulusevski does when he's out there. And that's just the simple facts of the situation. We keep getting caught out at the back post. Why? Because Porro goes with runners and Johnson is left standing there. When it goes in, he's like this. You know what I mean? I'm fed up with it. Someone's got to say it. He does not get back. Earlier on in the season, we gave him praise. He was working hard, getting back and stuff like that. But that stopped. He is not getting back to help him out. And that's another reason why we keep getting exposed on that side.
And also Pedro Porro, we already know kind of as it is, still has plenty to improve on defensively. So he does need that support. You know, he does need that assistant. He really can't do it on his own. He's not that sort of fullback. And Destiny Udogie then, maybe go to the other fullback here. Give your thoughts on Destiny Udogie for me, Edward. And then if you had anything you want to add to Pedro Porro, feel free to.
Destiny. I don't know. I don't call him doing anything shit. I don't call him doing anything amazing. But at the same time, we just
agree.
Shit on the day. I can't bring myself to give him even a 5, truthfully, because we just weren't that good on the day, and no one apart from the back three, Forster, Davies, and Jurgensen, even deserve a little bit of praise, in my opinion, when it comes to anything. Going forward, Udogie wasn't good enough. Going back, he definitely didn't help out enough. He definitely got saved a couple of times when it comes to Jurgensen and Davies. They definitely saved that back line a lot. And yeah, so he just wasn't good, didn't have an impact on the game as he should. As a left back, he should definitely have more of an impact. He's there to help create chances and to drive the team forward. He just didn't do that for us. And definitely, I don't know if he's showing signs of fatigue, of being overplayed, or still a bit buckling under that surgery he did have before the end of last season. I don't know if that's still haunting him. But he definitely hasn't been good this game, and he's definitely probably for me a 4, lower than 3.5, because he just didn't impact the game at all as he should. And he just didn't do anything well. So yeah probably a 4 is what I would give him.
I'd probably give that something similar as well. Let's show some praise to 2 people here, and then we can go back to, slating the rest of the team. Maybe we could probably show some praise to 1 or 2 other players. Not too sure, though. Radu Dragic, Ben Davis. I mean, I don't know, guys. The Welsh Maldini, we're still getting some great performances from him. The funny thing about this, Dave, is I even was looking into some of his stats. And that chance that he ended up, the goal we ended up conceding was from a misplaced Ben Davies pass. Do what makes that so hard on him as well? I think he only misplaced 2 passes in the whole game. So that was one of them. And he completed the most passes of anyone in the team. So he was kind of operating. He doesn't do it as well as Romero, let's be honest. But he is, I think, be given that responsibility to try to make some of those more daring passes out from the back. He has more of an eye for a pass than Radu Dragic does. And so he is taking on that responsibility. So actually in the game, he did exceptional when you think about it, both playing out from the back and then in that one moment that ends up leading to the goal. I just feel bad for him. But he did have some incredible emergency defending type moments, sticks in a foot, right at the right time. Another thing, too, is that what I've noticed from him, and you would never give this to Eric Dyer. I would never have said this ever about him. But it's like good proactive defending sometimes for Davis, where he will just sort of anticipate that there is something wrong going to happen, that the touch is going to go a certain way that maybe you wouldn't expect. And he's just there to recover. And he's kind of doing it in a way that's not panicky. It's not like, as if he's diving and lunging everywhere. He's just sort of putting himself at the right place at the right time. And it's making it look kind of easy. Like he's making the defending that he's doing look relatively easy on the day. And I think that's a real skill in itself. And I have nothing but praise for the guy. I mean, I think he is playing within his limitations of a player. He's playing out of his skin right now, at the moment. And I feel so hard for him, Dave. When I saw that stat, I thought of what you said during the watch along. I thought that was so hard.
Oh, look, he was the best player on the pitch by far yesterday in the Tottenham jersey. Look, Dragusin deserves praise as well, but Ben Davies was absolutely outstanding on the day. You know, even just in the first half, and I remember pointing out the amount of times he was in the right place to header the ball, get blocks on, block shots, the defensive side of the game. That's not luck, by the way. You don't look at that and go, fuck me, what a lucky boy. He seems to be in the right place. That's reading of the game. That's his experience coming to the fore, where he's like you said, he's anticipating the danger and he's getting himself in the right position to be able to deal with it. Absolutely brilliant from Ben Davies. And play him out from the back. I said it in the watch along. He was really good on the ball yesterday, but the goal came from him on one, I think, his only misplaced pass. It was really sort of harsh yesterday in that regard, and maybe a little reminder that, and it's the same with everybody. You got to be on it all the time. At this level, you can't afford just to have that one sort of error and get away with it. But on the whole, he was absolutely brilliant yesterday. And look, I think the Athletic put out an article saying Tottenham could be willing to enter negotiations to offer him a new contract. So let's wait and see what happens there. Look, me personally, as good as he's been, I would like to sort of move on from a lot
and on a high
stuff like that, and for him to walk away on a high, because I don't want him to tarnish my my last memories of him. He's been absolutely brilliant. As for Radu Dragusin, very good yesterday. I noticed he played out a couple of nice long-range passes out from the back yesterday, actually attempting to switch play a couple of times as well. He's improving, so let's keep going, Radu.
Just quickly on that, feels like Dave and I are just constantly being fed, like sort of Ben Davies' humble cake, and I think that's just what we want. We just want to be fed up to the end of the season. And then if he ends up being given a new contract, then it's just not the way you want to end it. I'd just like to be shut up, for this whole season, really, and just continue to praise him and sort of end it that way. That feels like the best route for me.
As much as I am praising Ben Davies this season, I think many people will be shocked. I'll praise him nearly every game he's played, actually, because he's been really good. There's still merit to the argument. Is he only performing because
the tinfoil hat?
Where was it when he was comfortable? I'm still putting that out there.
Well, I mean, I think I'm
still hesitant to hand him a new contract. You hand him a 2-year contract. He might go, job done, 80 grand a week. That brings him up to 35, sit back, relax. I'm weary of that.
No, I mean, even the fact that those articles have come out, Dave, I think is really making that theory, become more plausible, really. Edward, give your praises to Radu Dragusin and Ben Davies, please.
I got nothing but praises for them, except for that, of course, one unfortunate pass out for the back from Davies when he did give away the equalizer, which did unfortunately led to us drawing the game. But on the bright side, there is a bit of a bright side. He was the only player on the pitch who were actually telling the players to pick their heads back up and actually get back into it after that he left that goal in. He conceded that goal. He was actually telling the players to pick themselves back up and get back into it, because, of course, he knew he was the one responsible for that. And he knew he needed to find a way to try and lead them back into the game. And unfortunately, it didn't work for us, and we didn't do F4 for the rest of the game after the equalize. We just couldn't find our way back into it, and it was really unfortunate for Davies and Dragusin for putting in a hell of a performance for the day, and as he proved to us that they are good rotation for Mickey and for, of course, Romero. They're not as good as them, but they're a good rotation option, and they do give us depth in that position, depending on how you want to look at it. But
yeah,
no doubt, Dave, you probably got your dad giving you a lot of shit about Dragusin being so good recently, and just constantly.
Is your dad a huge Dragusin fan? Have I missed this?
Yeah, he's a huge Dragusin fan. He rang me there one day after one of the watch-alongs. A bollock. So random. Like, how can you get on to Radu Dragusin's case? If that was one of the players that have been there a long time, you would have defended them. And it's sort of like, well, hang on, what are you talking about? I got onto Dyer's case. I got onto Lloris's case. How many cases did I get onto? Because they weren't performing weeks and stuff like that. So not technically true. But look, Dragusin is improving. And like I said to my dad, I says, look, the boy can certainly defend. But he has been caught on the ball a few times this year. One of them led to a red card against Karabag. And look, don't get me wrong. I do think the last few games, he's actually really improved. He doesn't look like getting caught on the ball the way he once was. So let's wait and see. And look, like I said to my dad that night, I says, look, he's 22. At the end of the day, I'm going to call out where I think he needs to improve on. It doesn't mean I hate the guy. And I think that's the misperception that people, take sometimes. Oh, Dave, you just hate this guy. It's like, no, I'm the only one in his camp that's actually going to tell him what he needs to improve on. I actually would argue I'm his biggest fan.
That's probably just maybe the type of person your dad wishes maybe he kind of looked like or something like, if he had a body transformation, he
Well, my dad
wishes.
played centre half in his days,
Yeah.
so he's a lot of respect for centre backs,
Well,
and he knows a really good midfield when he sees one because he looks at what they do and what they offer the back line in terms of protection and stuff.
Curious if he's just a little jealous though, because back in his day you couldn't really do that man bun type of style like Rowdy Dragic, but maybe he secretly wanted to. He wanted to have that sort of look, that tough man mountain, type of look that Rowdy Dragic is able to pull off. Maybe he's just jealous. But yes, definitely the two best players on the pitch, probably with Fraser Forster as maybe the third. Pop Montasar being given a good rating by SofaScore. The thing is that I think we always get really hard work from Pop Montasar. I don't think you ever fault him for the work rate. Defensively, I think once again, does the best that he can, tracks back, is able to be also a willing runner. But for me, maybe in this game, I don't think it's not really one of my favorite Pop Montasar performances, if you kind of get what I mean. It's kind of just, he's reaching a high standard for himself where he does work really hard. He does a lot of the things that maybe others don't. But it's not like he was really that exceptional for me, in possession in this game. So a 7 feels kind of generous to me. I'd probably give it around a 5.5, 6 or something like that. Maybe I'm just judging Sarr by his own standards or high standard.
I'm just going to take the whole midfield as a 3 actually because
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to spend too long on these because they were absolutely awful yesterday as a midfield 3. Couldn't get near Fulham whatsoever. Couldn't get pressure on the ball. They just danced around them to the point where the midfield ended up sitting right on top of the back line, right on top of our area. Nowhere near good enough from them. Papa Matasar probably put the most energy in, but wasn't great on the day. Basuma, absolutely horrific on the day. I'm sick of this guy in possession. He takes way too much, invites way too much danger, and he vacates that number 6 a hell of a lot, which actually leaves our back line exposed compared to when Bentancur plays there. And James Maddison, I put the question out there after the Man City game last week, Jack. Did he perform like that because he wanted to go out and celebrate his birthday without it reaching the headlines? Well, I wonder is there something to that, because where was the performance here against Fulham to back it up? And this is the problem with James Maddison. It's so inconsistent. It's so up and down. But I did like that ingenuity on the free kick yesterday. So close to going in, hit the post. Unlucky on that one.
Mm-hmm. For me, I would say with Basuma, defensively, I think, once again, I don't really fault him too much. I think he does pretty well defensively. He does put in some pretty crucial challenges, does know how to put himself in the right areas to block up, the passing lanes. It's just in possession for me, man. I just think it's night and day between him and Bentancur. It just takes so much longer, it feels like, for Basuma to get it out from his feet, to make a decision. The way he even cleans up, when he even does win the ball back, it feels like it just takes a while for us to even get an attack going. Whereas Bentancur wins the ball back, and then it's immediately, it feels like, fired into the final third, and we get, a move started. And just in general, I think the pure silkiness and classiness that Bentancur provides in those deeper areas, I think helps us out so much more than people realize. Just those little touches of the ball, gives us extra bit of time on the ball. It gives us, more confidence that we can build out a move. Whereas with Basuma, for me, it's just always a bit, it just makes me nervous sometimes, the way that he tries to receive it under pressure, because he is capable of taking it past his man, no problem. But at the same time, he's also capable of ballooning it 15 yards in front of him, from a bad touch or from a misplaced pass. And I just still get the nerves, when it comes to Basuma in possession. And then with James Maddison, I thought he was actually good from set pieces on the day. I think he put in some really good crosses for corners. And as well, he had 2 good efforts, from the free kicks. But apart from that, don't really feel like he, had as much influence on the game as I would have liked. And he wasn't really as creative as you feel like he can be. He's supposed to be, again, in games like this, when we are threadbare, when we are missing players, you kind of want him to step up and be that Maverick style midfielder, demands the ball, takes it past 1 or 2 players, looks to try to slip people in behind. And yes, he needs runners for that. He needs a better front 3 for that. But I don't think he played so well that, you would kind of excuse him like we have with maybe Ben Davies or Dragic or maybe some others in the team. So I just don't think you can really defend Maddison too much after that performance. But for me, Eddie, I think, you're supposed, give us your thoughts on the midfield, but I think we'll get onto this in just a second. The front 3 is really where I think the major issue was on the day. I think they
Yeah.
were probably the worst. But any thoughts on the front three? Or sorry, not front three, the midfield.
Not particularly, because they were very awful that game, and you guys pretty much covered it all. We need a Dave type player in there. We need a Maverick, really. And I can in the summer I can see us probably, or in January I should see us shipping Basuma. And seriously considering bringing in a number 6, or even giving the backup role for a 6 to Archie Gray, and actually getting him to start playing his natural position as a number 6. And hopefully we do see that, because I feel like he would offer more and more protection to that back line than Basuma does, because Basuma just loses the ball too often and plays. I know Ainge likes risk taking, but I feel like Basuma offers too much risk in that midfield. He isn't what you're looking for in a 6. He loses the ball too often. He doesn't have a good pass on him, and he just doesn't do much for me. I feel like Basuma has to have a good days and his bad days, but this was one of his worst days I've seen, and he just definitely didn't do much this game. And Madison wasn't any better. He definitely lost the ball just as often. He, of course, like Dave and you guys said, he was good on set pieces this game. He actually offered a bit on there, but apart from that, he didn't do much. Of course, he needs runner for that, like you said, Jack, and we're on the front line later because they were horrendous. But he just didn't do anything else. He didn't try and drive the team forward. He is the vice captain. He should be trying to drive this midfield and drive this team forward and bring it up the pitch instead of being so far back in our own third, because we were back a lot of the time that game, and it's not Ainge ball. It's not what you want to see. And Ainge would have been furious. And we did see him get a bit up. I think it was Johnson on the day. He wasn't happy with whatever he was seeing. And I think right after he got up at Johnson, he scored. So whatever he said actually worked. We might see I think Ainge has been broken by this club already, and he's starting to lose his shit on the sidelines.
His body language doesn't look good. I watched the footage of him walking around after the game yesterday, and it's not the first time I've seen it. Even when I look at his press conferences lately, he's slouched, and his body language doesn't look good. He looks like a guy to me that is starting to come very fed up very, very quickly.
Haven't we seen, though, just quickly, like I've said this before, Dave, I do think Ange comes off a bit moody, more than other managers do, after games. He does seem to have his emotions very much, as you should, as a person. Your emotions get swayed by the results, but he kind of seems to show it more than maybe other managers do, if you kind of get what I mean. Because after a win, he looks buzzing. He looks like you're about to get a pint with him. But then when he loses, he does kind of look like, a little bit downtrodden and like kind of.
Well, put yourself in his shoes. Put yourself in his shoes, right? The perception is he doesn't work on anything during the week. Everyone scrutinizes the training. Does he work on tactics? Does he work on, video analysis and all that bollocks? Well, there was questions about Conte didn't do all that. Apparently he was off holidaying all the time. But when you actually listen to Hugo Lloris's quotes, apparently they done too much of it. That much of it, they didn't like it. So work that one out. And if you're a manager, right, you're constantly fighting a losing battle, because everyone's blaming everything on you at the football club. Absolutely everything goes on you. You're out there, you're being asked questions, from fans' point of views, questions about the owners. It's a lose-lose situation when you walk into the press conferences. And then when you win one week, you're standing there going, finally, they're starting to get it. Let's kick on. You go out the next week, they absolutely crumble, and you're like, oh, back to square one again. And after so many weeks of that, eventually you sort of just chasing your tail. You don't really know what to do anymore. And that's the concern.
I agree with you, Dave. It's just, I wonder if you don't have to read too much into kind of his body language sometimes after games, because he just seems like a guy that's just going to show it maybe more than other people would. And someone who shows their emotions, right, sometimes you just don't want to read into it. You don't want to dig deep, because people can be that way. They can be pouty. They can be moody, type of people in general.
It's the same as us after games though, right?
Exactly. So it's like, you don't want to dig too deep. You don't want to read too deep into it. It's just showing frustration. It's just showing anger or whatever. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess.
And just sick of the fans, sick of the point, sick of the board, and sick of the players. He's sick of all of us, and he is just in that mood at the moment that most managers get when they're at Spurs, when they just sick of the club and they want to win something, and this club is very difficult to win something. I don't know why. It's just a very difficult place to win.
Eddie, right? Sorry to cut you off, but that's the thing, though, right? Fucking, everyone wants to win and claims, and we're bringing in winners, and then they're being told everything they've done everywhere else is completely wrong, and they're left scratching their head. They're like, hang on, you brought me in to bring my winning mentality to this football club to help all you win, and now that I've arrived, you're all telling me I'm doing it wrong, and I need to do this, that, and everything else.
Yeah, and they dismissed their winning achievements, like we've seen with Ainge. They have dismissed every single winning achievement Ainge has done. They dismissed his winning achievement with Australia at the Asian Cup. They dismissed everything he's done in Australia and Japan and Scotland. They dismissed worst leagues, worst teams. But at the end of the day, he has to beat what is in front of him, and that's what he did. He beat South Korea in the final of the Asian Cup. He brought the worst team in Japan, the Yokohama Mariners, to top of the league and got them winning. When he took over halfway through the season, they were close to relegation. He kept them in the league and then got them next season, won them a trophy. In Scotland, Celtic was a mess. He came into a mess of a team that were losing a lot of the time and just wasn't in a good place, and brought them back to winning ways. First season won them a double. Second season won them a treble. He's great at coming into clubs who aren't in good shape and bringing them back to what they should be, winning teams. But this club is, of course, a lot bigger than those clubs and a lot more challenging with a lot more bigger fan base.
Look, yeah, we're a lot bigger than them clubs, but we've also had Jose and Conte who've managed bigger clubs than Tottenham and have, hit the same stone wall. The problem we've got, and it's a Tottenham problem, is when they walk into other clubs, they hire them, they bring them in, and they implement what they've done everywhere else, give them the tools they need to be able to succeed. For instance, when Conte took the job, we were arguing over training staff. But if this guy wants to bring his team with him, that's helped them win everywhere else. You accept that, you pay it. If he's the guy you really believe in, if he's the guy you want to come here and make us win, then in the transfer market, you have to dick about, you have to compromise, and all that bollocks, and I'm absolutely fed up with it. When they go to other clubs, the clubs genuinely do everything they can to implement what they've done everywhere else.
Completely agree. Onto the front three. I like Dave's style of doing kind of all of them at once, from each of us, and then whatever you guys want to add, of course, then you certainly should. Timo Werner, this is a shocking thing to say, but they were all terrible. They were all terrible, each of the front three. But I do think Timo Werner was just a tiny bit better than probably the rest, just because I do think he was more effective at taking it past his man. Don't get me wrong. Gave it away 1,000 times, it felt like, in that game. There's so many moments where he tried to touch it inside, and then it just got eaten up by some of the Fulham midfielders, and he just didn't learn from that mistake, it felt like. But if anybody was actually trying things, I think, on a more consistent basis and maybe pulling it off, felt like it was probably Timo Werner. Sonny, for me, couldn't get a single touch right, couldn't get a single pass right. Felt like everything was just going wrong for him. And he is missing some of the chances that are falling our way, even if we're not creating a ton of chances. Like in that Fulham game, he did have some of the better ones on the day, and he's just not taking them well. And then I also felt like, for me, with Sonny, I don't really want to put too much, emphasis on this, but I do think a little bit in that game, he was kind of hurting us defensively as well, because I do feel like he started to walk a little bit, kind of wasn't working as hard as he maybe should, out of possession. He is getting old. He's also trying to nurse an injury. Someone brought this up the other day, that it feels like he's having similar season to when he was under Antonio Conte in that second season, and he had like that hernia issue with his back, and he had to get surgery on it, but kept like delaying it. I wonder if there's something similar going on with him, because it felt like his energy levels really kind of dropped off considerably at certain points in this game. And then with Johnson, it felt like, apart from the goal, you wouldn't have even known he was on the pitch, really. Like, the guy just doesn't really do anything to create chances for others or create chances for himself. He doesn't know how to receive the ball, run at his fullback, try to get down the byline, can't cross the ball for his life. And then he just really struggles at just kind of giving his defenders issues, other than being at the right place at the right time to score. And I think that's a great skill to have, to be the guy that can pop up in those opportunities. I mean, where would we be without him, putting in these tap-ins, because at the end of the day, it's not luck, or it's not like, a coincidence that he's there. It's skill that he ends up in these right areas. The thing is, though, you can't just be this tap-in type of guy. Like, it is a harsh thing to call him a tap-in merchant, but at the same time, he is kind of being that way in the past few games, where he's not really doing anything other than just popping up in one little moment at the right time, skillfully, to put it in the back of the net. But for 90 minutes on the pitch, He's not really contributing chances. He's not actually giving the defenders much to think about. And it's been really frustrating. I would say he might have been tied with Sonny is probably the worst of the two. I say pick between the both because I think they were both pretty poor on the day. Timo Werner, I'd just give a tiny bit of a nod to in terms of a slightly better, and also because the cross that he played, I think that goal is more Timo Werner's kind of skill than it really is Johnson's for me. But yeah, I think the front three were the worst on the day. The front three were by far the worst of all the players.
I think Werner must kick that cross, Jack, to Johnson. He did. It wasn't intended. I know. Look, when it comes to the forward line, to be quite honest, I seen a sleepwalking into this one as soon as I seen it when it was announced. I said, I worry we don't have that vocal point. We don't have that out ball. We don't have someone that can hold it up. And I think it's a huge mistake not putting Kulu in that front line, especially once Solanke's been sent home because he's ill. I think you have to alter your plans. And especially because I knew anytime we got the ball, you're not going to be putting much into the box because we don't have anybody in there to really aim at. So I could see us sleepwalking into it. Look, Werner, yeah, good cross, good ball for Johnson. But again, I'm not going to praise him for one cross. Again, I keep speaking about this with him. Lack of quality in general. Got a load of ball. Didn't really do much with it outside of that. Son, I don't know how long I've been saying this. He's not a striker. Can't play there. He had 2 massive chances inside the first half off of misplaced passes by Fulham, actually, and didn't bury them. And then Brennan Johnson, look, this is a bit murky because, he scored 10 goals this season. He is our club's top scorer officially across all competitions. However, he is a one-trick pony, and I think it's still fair to say, despite being our club's top scorer, what else do you offer us? And against these low-block teams or teams that are well-organized defensively, he cannot operate. He doesn't have the answers for what we need for large periods of the game. When the ball goes out there, we need a bit of trickery. We need someone that can deliver that cross. He can't do it, and he's shown that time and time and time again. Unfortunately, in games like this, for me, he is going to have to be an impact player off the bench later on in the game when it's a bit more open. But for the first 60, 70 minutes of that game, he can't play out there. He doesn't have the answers. And unfortunately, a winger has to do both sides of the game, have to score goals and set up goals. You look at Dom Solanke, okay, he's got 6 goals this season or something like that, but he offers so much more in terms of work rate, pressing out of possession, laying on others. He's laid Johnson on a few times. And quite frankly, that forward line missed Dominic Solanke there yesterday when he wasn't there because out of possession, every single one of them were fucking lazy. Not one of them wanted to go after that ball and hunt it the way we do when Dom Solanke's in there. Big up, Tyler.
How you guys doing?
Good to see you with us, Tyler. For some reason, I feel like it worked so much better the other days when I was trying to do this formatting for the, for the screen. For some reason, it's not really functioning with me today. It's usually a lot easier to take a look at it. Let me try taking it off, maybe bring it back on here. Maybe that might work. Let's try it this time. No, still not working with me. Looks so much better the other times. Do you guys remember that? It used to look like so much better.
Yeah, they were bigger.
Yeah, a lot bigger like the other times. I don't know what to do.
We can make it out anyway.
Okay. Well,
I'm going colorblind. I can still see. Still got perception depth, Jack.
First one here I wanted to show was the Sonny missed chance. This is kind of what Nick was talking about. Pedro Porro plays it in behind. Johnson tries to put pressure on the defender. Anthony Robinson, our fellow Yank, Tyler, nearly gifted us a goal very generously inside 20 minutes. But Sonny, he's onto it. Sonny's, he's seeing the mistake here. He's onto it. This is the angle maybe Nick was looking for, Dave. Sonny,
no, that's the first opportunity. That's not the second one. He was about the second.
When in the highlight package, I couldn't pick up the second one. Maybe it just didn't show it. Maybe it just forgot to edit it in. But yes, this was one of them that I saw, the Anthony Robinson one. I'd say this one was pretty decent, for Sonny to maybe hit because he doesn't end up shooting it. He tries to take a touch around the keeper, mistouches it, ends up getting taken away from him. But Dave, yeah, maybe this isn't the right chance. Sorry.
No, that's the second one. There was one before that when Calvin Bassey misplaced the pass to put it to Timo Werner. Timo Werner squared it. And if you remember, he hit it straight at Leno when he had either side to put it. That one there, I said it in the watch-along yesterday, and how's he not shot that first time? What is he trying to do? And look, Nick, if you're still watching, my man, let us know your thoughts. You said you didn't think he had the opportunity to hit it first time. Let us know, maybe in the comments, go deeper into it. Let us know why not. But for me, when I look at that, I don't see why he hasn't just tucked that in, low and hard, either near post or far post, and it's a goal.
And go on, to some of the other moments in this game here. We had Davies defending. Just wanted to call out maybe one particular moment where I thought he did really well, actually, was an initial kind of corner. I think the initial header is lost by Udogie. Diop goes up to try to win it. It kind of lands to Davies here. He gets a good clearance onto it. Then it goes back out to Diop. Diop kind of fires in a shot. Davies doing exactly what Eric Dyer wouldn't do. He actually faces the shot, doesn't, shy away like it's a water balloon or a spray gun or something, being pointed in his face.
Yeah.
He kind of takes it straight to the chest or straight to the stomach, bounces right off him here. And then it kind of takes a weird bounce, ends up, I think, going to Sander Berge. He gets actually past Basuma in that little situation there. This was kind of that proactive defending that I kind of meant, Dave, is that, I don't know, maybe he doesn't trust Basuma or maybe he's just this sort of guy, Davies. I guess he sort of anticipates that Basuma isn't going to get the tackle here. He does get past him, Sander Berge, and then Ben Davies was there to rescue us. And had he not been there, I think this actually would end up being a goal because he actually got through past Basuma there in that situation. So I think Ben Davies just maybe a good example of that emergency defending.
On the line, Jack. Happens when 80k a week is on the line.
And Johnson's goal, this was, I think, a well-worked move by Spurs. Starts out with Madison spraying out a pass, to actually Anthony Robinson, intercepts it. It leads to, a dangerous counterattack for Fulham, where they actually had two players at the back post there that probably Anthony Robinson should have been able to find, but thankfully our fellow Yank wasn't able to do so, Tyler. It gets intercepted by Basuma. Basuma gets a good touch onto it. We lead an attack from there. What I will say is Spurs at this point, we did look really leggy. Like we looked so tired and gassed. Like Basuma could barely, get moving. Sarr could barely get up the pitch. You see Destiny, practically walking, there. And also Pedro Porro was basically told just to hang back by James Madison, because I think at this point, Pedro Porro was already limping, was already showing those signs of wear and tear in the game. We get it up to Sonny, who plays a nice little pass into Brennan Johnson. Johnson here decides not to take on his man. Maybe the right decision, considering didn't have a lot of options or, really many players.
He's one-on-one. Look at the
I was going to ask you about this, David, or am I being too generous? Should he have taken him one-on-one here?
Way too generous. He's one-on-one. What winger doesn't want to isolate the defender one-on-one and have a go at him?
Well, honestly, he didn't give it a single moment's thought.
Brennan Johnson?
He can't do it. He doesn't know how. That's my point.
Yeah.
If that's Mo Salah, if that's any winger at Man City, any winger at Arsenal, they're taking him on.
Well, when going back through the highlights, I'm not kidding. Like his body language when he received this, he did not even give it a moment's thought to try to take on the defender in this situation. Didn't even cross his mind. He then tries to recycle it back to Sonny. Sonny recycles it to Madison, goes out wide to Timo Werner. What I will say is Calvin Bassey ends up, I think, making a mistake here where he doesn't really tell anybody to cover Brennan Johnson because he decides to cover the run of Sonny. Sonny and Johnson kind of both going into the box at the same time. Leads to one of them being open. So you could say it's just decent movement from them all, but probably also poor defending really from Calvin Bassey. Leaves Brennan Johnson wide open. Timo Werner, lovely little Davy Dink cross to the back post, put into the back of the net. I mean, the goal's really not my favorite, lads. It's not, the best of goals. What I will say is that it came at a very crucial time because Fulham, they were the better team in that first half. They were kind of the better team already in the second half. We just took a great opportunity there. We were ruthless and disappointing that we didn't go on, I guess, and steal the result from here because Fulham ended up equalizing at a certain point. But Spurs, I think, did well enough to hold on and then get the goal, but despite us probably not even being the better team. Anybody want to pick out something from this goal? To be honest, it's not even a very interesting goal, if you ask me.
I just think it's a brilliant little dink pass from Werner. I was shocked that he pulled it off, to be honest. I was not expecting that, and a good finish by Johnson, but Johnson's been able to do that all year. Sadly, that's the only thing Johnson's been able to do. But as long as I guess he keeps scoring, I guess it doesn't matter too much as long as he's scoring. But he's really not offering much else on the pitch.
Mm.
And look, while we have you here, what's your thoughts on yesterday in general?
Yeah, I mean, just another classic disappointment. Just effort levels. I mean, I feel like they are trying, but they are tired. which you see United, you see Chelsea and Arsenal all playing in the midweek, and then they're dominating in their Premier League match at the weekend. So it's like that's not an excuse. We got to figure something out. I get the injuries; it's somewhat of an excuse, but we have this every season. We got to deal with it. We got to get a better squad, deeper squad, and Ange could have made better changes. He had Jed Spence on the bench. He didn't want to bring him on for some reason, even though he saved him earlier in the season. I think Lancashire should have come on at probably halftime, but especially when all the other subs, when the two subs came on, whenever what was it, like 65th or 70th minute, whenever he made subs, I think Lancashire should have obviously came on then. And then especially when the red card came, he should have immediately been subbed on again. So
Mm.
taking out Madison whenever they did get the red card, our most creative player. Sure, maybe he's tired, but he's our most creative player. He has to stay in the game when they go down to 10 men. And like Sam, I think Sam said it in his video. In the group chat, I was like, you can just see that they're just gonna pass sideways until the game's over. They're gonna see it out
Yeah.
because they just don't have any. They just don't have the creativity to do anything.
Yeah.
They're not gonna cross in the box because they're not confident in their crosses anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just ugly. It was just a very ugly performance. And respect to Fulham, even when they went down to 10 men, they looked the more team to score. So respect to Fulham. Robinson was captain. Shout out my Yank.
Absolutely
Um,
legendary.
I agree with you on the
Yeah.
crossing and the lack of belief. It did
Yeah.
start to show that, even when we went up a man, we still didn't really have much belief that we were going to actually create much of anything. And I'd agree with that. We were draining in confidence in that game.
Even
Do you
when
know what?
Lancashire came on, they weren't crossing. Like, come on.
Mm.
It makes no sense.
And do you know what's frustrating me in especially games like this, because look, I think we're the highest scorers in the Premier League, right? So it seems a bit rich that we're sort of sitting here talking about lack of creativity. But against teams that are well organized, lower
Yeah.
down the table, we don't create as many chances as we should. We create a lot more against the bigger teams than we do against teams that actually show us a little bit of respect in terms of their tactics. And when you look at Fulham, you go back and you look at Ipswich, Palace. It's not great attack and play. They just get the ball, put it in the box, put you under pressure, put it in from different angles, try shots,
Yep.
Stuff like that.
Mm.
Why aren't we doing that against teams like this? It's how you go and beat them.
No.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, Eddie?
Yeah, just on the Madison Spence situation, with Madison coming off, I feel like, yes, it's because he was tired, but I still don't feel like Madison would have done anything had they stayed on the whole game. I still feel like he just wasn't having in that game, and he wasn't going to be.
You got to take the risk, though, lad. You can't be taking off your creative players and bringing on 18-year-olds and expecting them to unlock the door. You got to take that chance.
Yeah, you got to take that chance, and decided not to take that chance and decided to go a different route and try something different. You can argue either way, whether right or wrong. I feel like he just wasn't going to do anything for us personally, just my belief. And this whole Spence situation, I feel like Ainge is just. I can't remember a single time this season when Ainge has have actively changed the backline when we have had this starting backline. He hasn't really subbed any of our backline off unless they were coming back from an injury or he absolutely had to sub them off. He tries to play a lot of the backline the full 90 minutes. We saw it against Everton when Mickey got that little bit of injury. He instead of doing the smart thing and taking Mickey off, he decided to let him stay on for the whole 90. And of course, he got the injury, which he was out for a couple of weeks. And I feel like Ainge it's in his philosophy. He doesn't like changing the back line, whether you believe that is right or wrong. He just doesn't feel like it's a smart thing to do during the game. Just something I've noticed the last couple of games and when people are asking for Spence to come on. I wouldn't get a high hopes of Spence being subbed on in any Premier League matches unless we actually have to.
Do you know what, Eddie, right? I'm sort of the same. When I play a football manager, right, and I know it's completely different, right? But in theory, I don't like changing my back line either. I don't like, risking the stability and stuff like that. But when you've got a player that's bollocks, Eventually, he's going to cost you. So you have to make that change. You have
Yeah.
to. If he's got no energy levels, he doesn't have the energy to follow runners in behind. He's going to let someone run off him and not track that run. It's going to happen. It's natural. You're a human being. You're going to cheat somewhere. You have to, as a manager, be proactive, and you have to make that change. And look, whether just me, I base it on the energy levels alone. That's when you got to make that change. If he's having a poor game and he doesn't want to do it, fair enough. But with the energy levels, if he no longer has the energy to get up and down the pitch, which you need, and you ask your fullbacks to do, you got to make the change.
And he was clearly having issues with, was it his groin or whatever when he slipped. I mean, he needed to come off the pitch. We needed to bring Spence on, and it's not like you're changing up the center back duo who was playing phenomenal the whole game. The fullbacks were struggling. They were getting beat, letting crosses come in. So it's not like you were disrupting something that wasn't already perfect. Like the center backs were doing their job fine, but the fullbacks were not. So. I think you can make that change.
And another thing I would just add to it is I can kind of see where Eddie and Dave are coming from on the whole, like you do risk, subbing players off, in the back line, risking that stability. Same time, like we brought up, Pedro Porro did look like he was struggling fitness wise, looked like he was going to get, was going to cost us. The other thing too, though, is that you do look at other managers like who play similar systems. They do tend to rotate, in the game. You see, like, for example, Jurgen Klopp, he would bring on Tsimikas, bring on Roberts, change out Trent, change out Andy Robertson. And, even look at Pep, he would bring on like someone else, at fullback, or he would look to bring on an extra center back or just do something to kind of either secure the back line more or bring on just a different dynamic to see, if someone could, offer something different. And I kind of agree with the theory, like one kind of works, maybe they both work, both are totally valid, but maybe in a game like this, that sort of reluctance to change your back line just needs to be looked at a little bit differently because you're hurting yourself by pushing Pedro Porro. And once again, it's a moment where Pedro Porro, was he pushing himself through an injury? And will we find out, maybe he's going to be out for a couple of weeks and this will be another situation where Ange ends up leaving a player on that, you don't necessarily need to when you have decent backup off the bench.
I'll be very surprised if we see him take the pitch against Bournemouth Thursday night. But look, to my point, it come back to haunt us the last 10, 15 minutes of that game. If anyone goes back and watches it, look how many times Pedro Porro gave away that ball down that right-hand side. Now, that's not because he's a bad player and we're used to seeing that. We know he's very competent on the ball. That's just out of pure tiredness. That's all that is. So when you're going and chasing that game, looking to get the winner, he doesn't have the energy to do anything with possession, so he keeps giving it away, and that's where it really come back to bite us by not making that substitution. Jed Spence, one thing he done against Coventry, he made that run in beyond the back line. They're similar, sit back, tight, but he had that extra energy when he came on to make that run in beyond the back line and get on the end of the ball and really sort of spark that revival. That's what we needed that last 10 minutes. Fresh legs down that right-hand side and just pushed them back. Came back to bite us by not making that sub. I thought he was wrong.
Yeah, and I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jack. I was just gonna say in the Roma game, I believe when I checked, I think Porro had given away the ball about like 25 times or 26 times, something crazy, and I haven't.
Tyler, I think you're. Can you still hear us, T?
Tyler, if you can still hear us, we can't hear you. Just log out and log back in, my man.
Yeah, I think your internet might have logged out for a second there, Tyler, but we're happy to go back to what you were saying on Pedro Porro in that Roma game. This was one of those moments where I thought this was what Dark Sun G might have been harping on about at one point, where he was saying that Lukic got a yellow card. This is what I'm confused about, because I looked back on it. It said Lukic got a yellow card in the 57th minute. This is, of course, the 60th minute. So is he actually right that he did get a yellow card only a couple of minutes ago before and then making this challenge? Or is that, do you get where my confusion is?
No, 100%. But if I remember correctly, it was the same at our home place last year where he got away a heap of tackles and he was on bookings and got away with a heap after. This guy just seems to be very lucky against Tottenham Hotspur.
Is he really that lucky, though? Like 2 minutes after, right in front of the referee, he just cleans out Sonny after getting a yellow card, and the referee waves play on and doesn't give him a second yellow. Is that really the case? That would be egregious refereeing. That'd be shocking.
But I think what he done is he gave us the advantage, but it wasn't really great advantage anyway. I mean, where is the advantage there? Where's the goal scoring opportunity there? You know what I mean? There is none. They've got more players back there than we've got going forward. So I just struggle to see where the advantage is. And quite frankly, even if you did play advantage and it didn't work out, as soon as that ball goes dead, you pull it back and you give him a yellow card. It's the rules of the game. So I
But it
don't
would have been a
understand.
second yellow then. But it
Yeah,
would have
second yellow straight. Second yellow and a red card.
Winning.
Look, if he wasn't already on a yellow, that's a yellow card by any other refereeing standard. He comes right through the back of him and upended him. Look at Son. He's not jumping. That's him being upended.
I'm maybe like actually flabbergasted because if he actually already was on a yellow before this challenge, and the fact that if that yellow card did in fact come 2 minutes prior to this, and the referee just somehow forgot, I guess, like that had happened. Because if you'd seen a guy that you had just given a yellow to make that challenge, I don't even think you would consider playing advantage. You would be straight away like, all right, off you go. Like, see you, buddy. And if that's really the case, that is shocking refereeing. That is shocking refereeing because he's right in front of the challenge as well. He could practically win the ball here. So I don't know. I'm going to have to maybe go back in the game and actually see if Lukic genuinely did receive a yellow for something else, before this. Because if he really did, that is unbelievable. That's one of the worst refereeing decisions I've seen because genuinely, because Tom Kearney comes on for Lukic to then go on and score. So that goal just doesn't happen then.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. It doesn't happen. We're 1-0 up at that point. He goes down. Are they really going to end up trying to really push as much as they did for the next 10 minutes after that, for that equalizer? Probably not. We've seen their reaction when they went. Obviously, they had something to hold on to at the time when they went down to 10 men, but, it changes the game completely.
Tyler was just receiving a phone call. Makes sense. Bringing the big T back in here. I'll have to look back on it because if that's the case, that actually might be. I could see why Dark Sun G was losing it because that might be one of the worst refereeing moments I've seen in some time here. Let's go on to a moment later on here where I think it ends up. Yeah, so it was kind of a Sonny receives this challenge. Should have been another yellow card, but then also it did lead to a chance here. It goes out wide to Johnson, and we saw Johnson do this a couple of times, if not a few times in this game, where he had a run from Pedro Porro or someone else making a run off of the defender here. And remember, he just kept doing this where he would overplay it past the player making that run. And it's just something, again, that was just really frustrating on the day that Johnson just can't cross, can't really play others in, overhits passes. I mean, other days he probably does pull this off, but it was just like this is just a good example of just a really frustrating performance that he had.
Does he pull it off on other days? I don't think he does. I think this is a common theme in his game. This is not us pulling it out on one game. I think we've been quite consistent of this. Johnson is adding goals. He's impacting games in that regard. But for the rest of the other 89 minutes, he's on the pitch, bar that 1 minute where he makes the run and scores. He doesn't offer enough, and he has to offer a lot more. And this is a common theme. This is why I keep pulling him out, because there are players in good positions. He does get himself in great crossing positions. But often it's overhit. And 9 times out of 10, it's overhit. Can anyone really pull out one good cross right off the memory straight away that Brennan Johnson's put in for someone to finish the season?
This season, no. This season, no.
I mean, I'm sure he has, but I can't.
But the fact that you can't pull it right off the top of your head is concerning. Like with Dom Solanke, I go straight back to that Brighton game where he played Johnson in. With Werner, the fresh game yesterday maybe helps a little bit, but there's games, Mattis, Kulusevski.
Yeah, even Werner, you could probably think of a few crosses.
You know what I mean? Right, with Johnson, what one can you pull straight off the top of your head? And that's concerning straight away.
Yeah, some of Werner's left-footed low pokes you could probably think of, that have ended up actually working out for us at the end of the day. You are right.
Last season, I can think of one, and that was a Crystal Palace game where he somehow bulldozed his way through 2 defenders and got the ball in. And that's the only game I can think of he's done that sort of thing and hasn't done that since. So I just think that came to the top of my head.
But Johnson is just, the thing is that you just rarely think of moments where like he's just facing his defender, and as most wingers do, like you even watch Man City, like a Savinho, right? Faces his winger, sizes him up, takes it down the byline, gets that bit of space, whips into dangerous, curling cross. Just doesn't do that. Like he just doesn't know how, doesn't want to, isn't able to. Maybe all 3 of those things, but it's just that's what I would say is the frustrating part, is that most traditional wingers, when they receive the ball, they're immediately facing their fullback, looking to try to take advantage of some sort of space, that they think is available to them. And then they usually look to play across, from there, or some sort of incisive pass. And just doesn't look to do that. He actually
What's Kate's son?
just looks to kind of touch it towards the outside, and if the outside space isn't there, or if he isn't so glaringly obvious for him, just looks to pass it back inside, and then wait for a cross towards the back post. Basically, it's very obvious kind of what his style is and what he's comfortable doing and what he isn't comfortable doing.
You go back to some of the best wingers at Tottenham. What made them so exciting to watch?
He's the opposite of an Aaron Lennon.
Look at Son, look at Lennon, look at Bale. Some of the most exciting wingers. David Ginola, some of the most exciting wingers of my lifetime. What got me off my seat watching them? Every opportunity they got to go at the fullback, they skinned them and delivered that deadly ball.
Yeah.
Wait, Dave, but I thought a lot of I've seen multiple of our fans compare Brennan Johnson to Gareth Bale, though.
No, Bernardo Johnson. Bernardo Johnson T. This is Fulham's goal. Fulham's goal. It came from a nice switch of play. I think who's that? Of Harry Wilson that came on and goes out wide to Anthony Robinson. Porro, again, he looked like he was struggling when I was watching back the highlights in this point because he's kind of just jogging out there. And it's a good switch of play, but he's just jogging out there. He looks again like he's struggling. He should have been taken off by this point. Johnson as well, jogging back, trying to track this Iwobi run. They find Iwobi quite easily. Iwobi gets down the byline here. Johnson's trying to recover because he is in a dangerous position here. Alex Iwobi ends up kind of standing up Johnson, does a nice little sort of fake cross, stands him up here and looks at Tom Kearney. You can see right next to the referee there, just sizing up this opportunity. Everyone's also ball watching as well. Pedro Porro coming towards the ball, Sarr coming towards the ball. And I don't blame them necessarily because Iwobi got into a really dangerous area, though. So you will probably start to draw your attention towards them. Everyone is looking at Iwobi. No one picks up this Tom Kearney position. Even more so, everyone just continues to look at the ball. Iwobi eventually slides him in. And it's a great shot here, a great shooting opportunity for Kearney. And I mean, he caught it really well. He struck it really well. Even in that still frame, you can see, he strikes it really well between all the defenders, through a lot of bodies, and it went into like basically perfect side netting. David Harris class finishing, inside the post, side netting. I don't blame Forster. I really probably blame Johnson, Porro really for this goal, if anything. I just thought their tracking back in this situation was quite poor. Kind of both jogging, both lazy. And then Johnson, by kind of leaving Iwobi here, he does kind of panic from what I saw because Iwobi gets it. Once you get into this area, you are, letting in someone to a really dangerous spot. And so Johnson kind of over-adjusts, over-accommodates, trying to block the cross, gets stood up by Iwobi, and then kind of the goal just sort of manifests itself from there. And Tom Kearney, I mean, it's a brilliant strike. It takes a brilliant strike to score that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know why no one's tracking Tom Kearney here because we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plays in the box. We've only, I think, I've seen 4 Fulham players in the box. Someone needs to track Kearney here because he's in a dangerous shooting position. Any good striker, midfielder can score from this position. It is a dangerous position, especially when he left wide open. Someone needs to track Kearney, in my opinion, whether it's Sarr or Son, or just someone needs to track in here. You can't leave him in that sort of position, in that sort of area, because he's probably one of the most dangerous positions to be in that free. It's ridiculous. Someone needs to track it.
Yeah, our midfielders aren't great at that, honestly. I feel like Basuma and Sarr both will leave runners on the edge of the box like that. But it's also the space that we give teams out wide. I mean, we literally ask them to cross it in. We literally let them cross it in. It's crazy, and we're not even good at defending aerial balls. So I don't know why we're allowing teams to get the width and allowing them to cross it in. I mean, Davies, to be fair, has been dealing with aerial balls a lot recently, but even with I guess with Davies and Dragson, maybe we're a little better aerially, surprisingly. But we allow teams to ping that over the top ball. Porro gets isolated. Archie Gray gets isolated against Roma. And teams are going to pick us apart eventually. They're going to get that right cross in and they're going to score.
To me, it comes down, though, to just realizing the danger. Like, you go back a couple of images there, Jack. Porro's jogging out there. Where's the intensity? Where's the realization of the danger to get out there and get within 2 to 3, 4, 5 yards of your man and, make him go one way or the other. Force him to do something. Not sit up him and allow him just to pop it in behind you. Brennan Johnson, again, jogging. Then he starts sprinting when it's too late. And then he gets himself in a position where Obi just chops it back and opens it back up. But realistically, he's got to realise that danger before that. And he's got to be busting a gut to get back and pick up that one over Obi. If he does that, that pass isn't on then. And then we've hauled them up. We're not as exposed. It comes down to the intensity. This is what I've said with Brennan Johnson and Porro down that right-hand side. They are not good defensively. Johnson doesn't recognise the danger quick enough defensively. This isn't the first time we've seen him sort of be late to track a man. We go back to many of these shows, Jack, many of the goals we've conceded. He's standing 10 yards away from his man, 10 yards off him, looking at him. It's not good enough. When Kulusevski's out there, he provides him a lot more cover. But also with Pedro Porro, no excuses. Look, I was screaming for him to be taken off by this time because the energy wasn't there, but there's no excuses. You've got to be sprinting out there.
Yeah, it's bad when both of them are jogging. That's never a good situation when you see both of them jogging. And brilliant strike from Tom Kearney into the back of the net. This is last and certainly not least. I just got really frustrated when watching back this moment. These are the final minutes on the clock. We have what is it, 15 minutes or something to try to go for a goal. We don't create anything basically since the moment of the red card. We barely create much of anything. We showed so little belief and so little urgency in these final seconds. It was shocking. Pedro Porro before this tried to whip in a cross. It was a terrible cross, got cleared away very easily. Luckily, it went back to us. Radu Dragic feeds it to Basuma, who then feeds it to Johnson here. Johnson, again, doesn't rate himself to do anything in these type of situations. Doesn't look to play in Pedro Porro, who is making a run to probably play in a cross. He could also try to find Kulusevski if he was really, clever enough and was good enough, but doesn't decide to do either. He shifts it back inside. I don't know why. And then ends up just playing a 4-yard little sideways pass to Basuma here when we have literally 10 seconds left before the 7th minute, is added on. I don't know what sort of I just don't know what Johnson is even thinking in this situation. It's either he has no confidence or belief in himself, or he really just, or I guess that's what it must be, that because he just has no belief in himself to play Pedro Porro here, or to play in across himself, or to try to find Kulusevski, or basically do anything of any type of risk or consequence. Instead, he just shifts it back to the player he just received it from, who was obviously trying to, have him do something with it in that wide area. Basuma ends up also casually playing it, like sort of in a walking type manner, plays it out wide to Pedro Porro, who ends up losing it from here. It really was like a 10, 30-second spell here that's worthy of, throwing your phone out the window, because I was watching it with my phone this morning and trying to take some of these screenshots and everything, and genuinely wanted to throw the phone out the window when looking at this. It was that frustrating. 10 seconds left, and you can't even attempt a cross in this situation from any of them. And also, even Basuma's kind of really effed me off here to a degree, because the way he kind of receives this, and I'll look at his body language when he kind of receives it back. It's just sort of standing, not really urgent. Again, 10 seconds left here. You would think you would show a bit more urgency. Look at the way he sort of nonchalantly plays it, out wide to Porro. And it ends up, being played probably not with a real zip or anything to it. So Porro ends up losing it because he gets closed down really easily. It genuinely wanted me to break my phone, this last 10 seconds. From Basuma to Porro to Johnson, all three of them, really.
Yeah. You know what, funny, Jack? I felt the same thing, because by this time I was done with work. I was on my way home. I was in the car. I had my phone. Was watching the game, and I was so close to throwing it out the window because of how shit we were at this end. Because I was screaming for us to cross it in, to get in the box. We have our bodies in there, and we need to do something to change it, because we can't just keep passing it sideways. We're not going to do anything. And Johnson needs to recognize he's in the right position to pass it to Paul. I don't know what he's thinking, trying to shift it back to giving to Basuma. Basuma isn't going to do anything with it. He doesn't have the position to do anything with it. Play Paul. Paul was onside, in a good position to make a run and to get the ball in. Doesn't do it. It's shocking from Johnson, and it's shocking from the whole team. It's absolutely drove me crazy by the end of the game. It was just a shit game.
It was just
in all in general.
It was just the whole body language in general. When they went down to 10 men, it was shit. People walking around on the ball, walking, no urgency to really go on and win that game. And this is what pisses Spurs fans off. You go and win that game. No one really cares about the 90 minutes. All of a sudden goes, great 3 points, got 10 injuries or 9 injuries, whatever it is. Move on. Let's see if we can go and take something against Bournemouth away from home.
Totally.
But the lack of urgency to win. And let's not forget, half of these players came out and said, we want to win trophies.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty sure you're going to have to show some urgency in games like this then.
Yeah.
You want to know what concerns me? When I'm sitting here thinking about it, how many times have we been in this situation with Ange and these players where, we're playing a team parking the bus and we are just watching them pass it back, pass it sideways. No one has the balls to, dribble their defender and cross it in. They just I mean it's crazy that they will just sit there and pass back no one will take responsibility. Nobody. And when you think about it if you think about when we've been under Mourinho or Conte, we've had these players, even like a Lucas Moura or a Bergwijn. We saw Bergwijn did it against Leicester. There's urgency at least. They'll at least try and do something. Like something just isn't right. Like I don't know if Ange just isn't motivating these guys, because you've seen it under Mourinho and Conte. There was more energy, in the good times. Obviously, towards the end they gave up, but.
The thing is, though, when I look at the squad, we've got a lot of robust players, players that can get around quickly. But when you're chasing a game with 10 minutes to go, Basuma's not known for his passing ability or crossing ability. He never does it. Even when he's playing number 6, you want him to play the ball a little bit further beyond the obvious pass. Can't do it. Johnson, we just keep speaking about it, can't cross a ball. Werner can't cross a ball. Sonny, he can't cross a ball, but he's not known for it. He's known for getting at his fullback, running at him and taking him on, getting shots off. Madison's off the pitch by that time. You're playing Kulusevski as a striker. The only one that can cross the ball is Pedro Porro, and he's absolutely fucked. He's not. We don't have anybody. Adoji, he's not known for his crossing ability either, and that's our problem against these low block teams. You don't have them creative little delicate passing players in the team, and that's why in a game like this you've got to keep James Maddison on. He's the only one with that sort of ability. The rest of them can't do it. I keep saying, when you come up against low block teams, if you have Son out the left, you've got to have a physical striker in the middle, and outright you've got to have a bit of balance, and then that's someone that can get on the ball and whip them balls in consistently for others to go and feed off. We don't have that. We have players that just want to run in behind and that are runners, robots. We don't have a lot of sort of craft within this team, and that's the next step we need to take. That's why many people are calling for, like, for instance, an Eze over the summer to bring a bit more craft to the lineup. We're not doing that. We're just bringing in runners and robots. They're technically efficient, that they can do the basics, which is a huge improvement on years gone by. But, when you look at the Pochettino team, for an instance, you had many players that could play them sort of little passes. You had Toby could do it. Jan Vertonghen could do it. Eriksson could do it. Then, you had Harry Kane who could go and do it. We had plenty of players that could do it. In this squad, we just don't have the right sort of balance or the right. And this is where a squad's important, right? This is why you got to have something different to Brennan Johnson. There's no point in bringing in someone that does the same as Brennan Johnson. You've got to have different options. So you've got to go out and look for a player that, if you're so-called an old-fashioned winger for games like this.
No. Yeah, the whole thing with low blocks for me and Ainge, I said it before, Ainge is asking these players to pass it back and pass it sideways. He's asking them to pass it up the pitch. He wants them up the pitch, running for the ball, and you see him getting very, very mad on the touchline and walking around, being moody on the touchline and screaming at Johnson to do something, to make a run, to go up the pitch, pass the ball. He wants them up the pitch. He doesn't want them backside passing, doing this horseshoe football we have associated with Ainge ball. It isn't what he wants. The players are just not doing what he wants. And we need to say, I said this in the chat, we need to shake the squad up in the summer or in January. We need more urgent players. We need some tricky players. We need players that will add something to this squad. I'm hoping we go out there, get a backup fullback, and get us a new sort of winger, maybe. I know me and Ty had a big discussion about wingers earlier, but more that I watch the squad, the more I'm getting bought in that we do actually need a winger. We do actually need someone more than young McHook. I know I've been saying we have a lot of wingers, have a lot of young wingers, and I'm scared about blocking their pathways. But why we're bringing these young wingers in or having these young wingers if they're not going to play? But I do realize we do need someone more tricky on the ball. And at the moment, the only tricky player we have is Son. Son's the only player which I can say is actually tricky. We have Werner, who's good with his pace, but he doesn't
I'd say
do it
Mikey Moore.
consistently.
But
Mikey
obviously,
Moore,
we don't know
but
where. I mean, what the hell happened? I don't know. How is he still sick? I feel
he's
bad.
sick
I
of,
really feel bad for him.
Yeah. Well, I think
he's sick still, and he is still. They're going to.
No, sorry. You finish up what you're saying, Eddie. Sorry.
Yeah. Just quickly finishing up. He's still sick and also still young, so we don't know how tricky he's going to be. We saw him in his first ever Premier League start. He didn't have an amazing game. Of course, this was against Brighton. No one had a great game against Brighton, really. But we'll see how he develops as he gets older and as he can gain confidence playing in this league and if he can become a great winger for us.
Well, everybody, that's all I had. One of the most boring games I think we've seen in some time now. Wasn't even that fun, to find that many chances. A lot of times just wanted to break the computer, break the phone as I was going through them. But if anybody had any final words, you're welcome to put them in now. But thank you so much to all the people that joined us today. Lots of activity in the chat. Really appreciate you guys from Bond73, Stevie Frazier, Alan, Edward for coming on, Big Tyler for coming on. Appreciate you too. You guys help us out a ton by being on with us. Lots of activity and lots of good combos in the chat. But any final words from people?
Look, it's a disappointing result. It's a hard one to take because we keep shooting ourselves in the foot. But, you do have to take into context, we are amidst a really big injury crisis now.
Yeah.
For instance, if you have Vicario, he starts. You have Romero van der Ven, they start. If you have Richarlison, he starts because Solanke was out sick, So we've got some players out there that really probably would have came in and really helped make Bentancur if he wasn't suspended. He probably would have started ahead of Basuma. So, there's a lot of players that we were missing that probably would have made a real difference in this sort of game. So you got to take that into context. And, people that go injuries don't matter. They do. Jurgen Klopp suffered mad towards the end of his Liverpool tenure because of injuries. Look at Arsenal not so long ago suffering when they had injuries. Man City at Pep. Despite having the best squads, you do suffer when you have injuries. And so you got to take that into context. And look, hopefully we can produce something better against Bournemouth, Thursday night, because we really do need to start trying to find that consistency if we can. Where when you look at the table now, we're not too far outside of getting into the top four, which, look, top four it's not a trophy, 100%, I get it. But when you look at how far Liverpool are ahead, that dream's done. The Premier League dream is done for us. So now it's about salvaging the best you can. You got Man United in the Carabao Cup quarter-final. That'll be a huge one. I think if we lose that, I think that's where a lot of scrutiny comes on Tottenham, especially if we're badly outplayed, because Amarim's only new in at Man United. So I think it wouldn't look good for Ange Postecoglou if we lost that game. And then we're still in, I think we're ninth in 40-team league in Europe. So, it's not time to really press the panic alarm yet.
No.
Let's keep going and see how it goes over the next little while.
Alrighty, lads. Thank you so much for joining us for this one. Hopefully see you later on in the fan show. If you guys are going to join us later, we could have more personal time, more convos over this tough month ahead of us. We really appreciate all the support that we get over here.
Nice fans to me if you follow us. Keep following us around all these places.
But everybody, we'll leave you later. We'll leave you now, and we'll see you later for the fan show. Tomorrow, I'm not too sure what the schedule looks like, but we'll update you as things go. But yeah, really appreciate all the support. You guys help us out a ton by joining us over here on this platform, and we'll see you next time. Come on, you Spurs lads, and let's hope we don't have to talk about a performance like this in some time.
Come on, you Spurs.